As we gain access to more advanced models of ChatGPT and other large language models or other AI, whatever, I think that it's important to remain somewhat grounded of what people are actually using them for. There are so many people who are going to be doing so many things, and this is a new frontier. So it can feel abstract and overwhelming. I'd like to make it less abstract and overwhelming. I have this window of ChatGPT o3-mini up. The models that are available are 4.0, 4.0 with scheduled tasks, o1, o3-mini, o3-mini high, GPT-4o mini, and GPT-4. I'm going to be using o3-mini first to process the things that I have in this repository. This is a code base where I keep the outputs and the thoughts that I have about the chats that I have with ChatGPT. The reason is sometimes I use a workspace, sometimes I collaborate with other people, and I just want to make sure that the specific conversational points that I want to remember are accessible. So I have this folder in my WebStorm project folder. I'm using an integrated development environment provided by JetBrains called WebStorm. In this folder, I have something that I think of as a dashboard, which has active chats and old chats. I've been doing this since November 8th of 2024. Actually, this file is from November 7th, 2024. So I think that folder was created a day after I started this repository. Anyway, in this folder, I make markdown files generally. I also make some other files if that's the output from ChatGPT. In this particular, let's see, what is this? Below is a front-end only recipe for coders looking to build an interactive React site with GSAP-powered animations and optional D3 visualizations. We'll integrate a fictional oscillator concept as a thematic layer, but the framework can be adapted to any creative storytelling or data-driven project. This recipe emphasizes separation of concerns, broad bases and substeps, and web components for garnishes. There we go. So I think that's pretty interesting, and I can also see what this looks like in the markdown preview, or I can view it as a markdown file. And I find this very useful because I can find the snippets of, for example, CSS and just copy that to my clipboard. And if I want to, I can create a new Scratch file and paste that in and do whatever I want with the code. So this structure works out very well for me. The most recent things that I want to explore, let's see, seeds. These were the first series of chats that I was exploring on January 29th this year. And head, these are the things that I have on my mind. So I'm assuming this file that was made the most recently, n.markdown, I assume this file is going to be the most relevant file for updating the things that I'm thinking about today. Creating a prolific and enduring cultural movement. So this is me thinking about the broader genre called boonhonk, which is meant to extend the concepts from hip-hop with modern spins based on pretty much the swing of the Olympics, the directions that the Olympics are going. And before this, boonhonk matrix expansions, this is me thinking about specifically the elements of this genre that I want to include as it relates specifically to hip-hop and some of the structures that I've been exploring. Multi-channel discussion. Let's see. What's this one about? Below is a pattern-based approach to define endpoints for each domain and its 3 components and HTML or CSS scaffolding. So I have 37 domains and I'm asking for 3 components per domain, listing every single endpoint. And I'm using TRPC to create these routers so I can navigate in this structure. So theoretically, I actually think this is going to be the most First, I'm going to go over to n.markdown, and I'm going to say, this is the vision long-term for practice and development. I am the founder of a genre called boonhonk, similar to drawing upon origins of hip-hop, with a context of lore-driven aesthetics in the context with influence from Gen Z attention to various avenues of prolificity about media. Let me see. The text outlines a detailed cultural initiative. I'll note the key strategies or offer a summary as key details are provided. This vision outlines a comprehensive, multifaceted strategy to build boonhonk as a lasting cultural movement. Key points include a strong identity and branding, clear values and mission, community engagement, narrative and storytelling, adaptability and innovation, inclusivity and diversity, strategic partnerships, integrated messaging, robust infrastructure, cultural rituals and education, and documentation. So that's a good starting point. Now I'm going to go over to k.markdown. Below is a pattern-based approach to define. Now I'd like to practically implement this genre artistically into the web. First, I will sketch components in my style based on the vibes I'm feeling per release. I intend for this structure to be useful for onboarding new developers such that they may extend the structured language of each site, perhaps maintaining the core code base. I intend for the structure to be useful for onboarding new developers such that they may extend the structured language of each site, perhaps maintaining the core code base in development of their skills and in description of their style as boonhonk artists. Now I'm going to switch models to o3-mini high, and I'm going to say consider modern tastes and abilities related to agentic systems and code. Consider a more stylistically opinionated approach to coding, perhaps with cultural idioms about which dimensions are blended and which files are specifically included with sparse contents or embedded with mixed languages. Crafting a modern and engaging narrative that integrates autonomous systems, varied languages, and sparse content reflecting current coding trends and cultural nuances. Working on a modern, stylistically opinionated coding approach that includes mixed language files, cultural idioms, and a minimalist dynamic file structure. And pulling together a directory structure for Boonland, blending dynamic and multi-language files, embedding cultural idioms, and integrating modern coding practices. This approach fosters a cohesive, contemporary aesthetic. I'm mixing in CSS modules, styled components, and Tailwind CSS with a modular approach. Each domain will have a README explaining its cultural context and a manifest.mjs file with metadata that includes cultural idioms. I'm crafting a clear, direct answer with a concise code outline. This will lay out a stylistically opinionated file folder structure, mixing languages and emphasizing sparse file contents. I'm architecting a folder structure with a stylistic opinion, combining languages and sparse files, while embedding cultural idioms and creating narratives through MDX storytelling. I'm designing a stylistic folder structure, merging languages and sparse files, embedding cultural idioms, and integrating agentic systems with AI-based code introspection and dynamic endpoint routing. I'm piecing together lean files and modules using JSON-like manifest.mjs for narrative details. This approach fosters clear, context-aware integration, reducing boilerplate and enhancing narrative clarity. Piecing together a streamlined file structure with narratives in manifest.mjs. I'm ensuring clear, multi-language integration. This approach fosters distinctiveness and effective efficiency. I'm embedding MDX files to weave cultural narratives into the file folder structure, enhancing the artistic and narrative richness of the project while ensuring a concise and effective file arrangement. I'm refining the file structure with MDX narratives, integrating API interactions and styling, ensuring a minimalist yet culturally rich project setup. Below is an approach that embraces modern agentic coding practices with stylistic flair, a lean narrative-rich structure that blends dimensions, visual, narrative, and code, and interleaves sparse files with embedded idioms and mixed languages. Each domain is a self-contained module with minimal yet expressive files. Index.tsx, manifest.mjs, api.ts, and components and styles. Manifest.mjs is a minimal file that expresses the domain's identity and cultural narrative. Mixed language, sparse code examples are React components that fetch data via TRPC and use embedded narratives from the manifest. There is a lean style and a blend of TypeScript, CSS modules, and narrative text. I appreciate this. Agentic systems build endpoints in API.ts that are self-contained, self-describing, and autonomous. These endpoints can be later extended or introspected by agentic modules, AI helpers, dynamic routing, etc. Use sparse metadata files like manifest.mjs to capture the essence of each domain. Let these files drive not only configuration, but also inspire component-level narratives, for example, headings and tooltips. Embed narrative inside your TypeScript files, or even use template literals for inline styles that reference cultural themes. This opinionated approach fuses modern coding practices with a cultural narrative. It uses a minimal modular file structure where manifest files capture the domain's ethos. Sparse mixed language files let you embed narrative alongside functional code. Agentic endpoints and components create a self-improving, extendable system that welcomes future cultural and technical evolutions. This blend of clear structure, narrative-driven metadata, and agentic extensibility meets modern tastes while keeping the code expressive and adaptable. So this is fantastic. I appreciate this a lot. I am going to create a new folder called 2025. Today is February 2nd. And I'm going to create a new file called a.markdown. This particular folder isn't going to have a head and seeds yet because this is the same thought. I might only have one file in this folder like I did on the 14th. So this is how I process my thoughts. I'm going to return to this later. I know that I've read this and I know that this is up to date with what I'm trying to do. I can compare this to the latest file, n.markdown from January 29th, and an earlier file, k.markdown, also from January 29th, and I can reflect on the direction. I can ask ChatGPT, what am I trying to do? What are the things that I've made progress on? And I think that I can ask ChatGPT to add this to the memory somehow, but I don't think that's the way that I want to use this coding structure. I really appreciate this blend of language. I really do appreciate this manifest.mjs. This is a JavaScript module file, MJS. Yeah, I think that's it.